It is 1 a.m. in Washington, 8 in Kiev, and 2 on a Wednesday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Gun-young. Here's a look at your headlines at this hour. 3 weeks since Korea's tragic ferry accident, the government has come up with plans to beef up safety measures of vessels on all fronts. The New York State Senate approves the dual use of East Sea and Sea of Japan to refer to the body of water that separates the two countries. Now, it's also adopted a resolution expressing condolences for the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. And taking action, a U.S. team is now on its way to help find hundreds of schoolgirls kidnapped by terrorists in Nigeria as we hear for the first time what happened from one of the girls who got away. We'll have those stories and more, but first let us begin this Wednesday afternoon with a warning from South Korea's top diplomat. Seoul's foreign minister says a potentially devastating military collision in Northeast Asia is not something that is impossible given the geopolitical climate in the region. Minister Yoon's comments come as Japan strengthened its military ties with NATO through a new partnership deal during Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's trip to Brussels. Here's our Yudian with this report.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se says a military conflict could be on the cards in Northeast Asia, a region plagued by historical, regional, and security-related tensions. Speaking at the International Peace Institute in New York City on Tuesday, Yoon expressed his grave concern over the increasing rivalry in Northeast Asia. He noted China's emerging power, Japan's aim to make a comeback as a regional power, and Russia taking a tougher stance against the West. Minister Yoon said this, coupled with North Korea's ongoing nuclear threats, is creating serious changes to the geopolitical sphere of Northeast Asia, as well as to the Korean peninsula. The foreign minister's words of warning come as Japan tries to secure more military power. On Tuesday, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe signed a new partnership agreement with NATO that will deepen Tokyo's cooperation with the Western military alliance in areas including counter-piracy and humanitarian assistance. Speaking to ambassadors from the 28 NATO nations in Brussels, Abe also called for increased military freedom in Northeast Asia. Expressing concern over China's heavy military spending, the Japanese leader reiterated his wish to exercise the right to defend an ally under armed attack. Under the current interpretation of the constitution imposed after the Second World War, Japan is unable to settle international disputes using military force, even if it comes under attack. Abe said a panel of security experts is currently looking into changing this, with the government expected to come up with a policy on global peacekeeping operations. Yudian, ARIRANG News.
With speculation swirling over when North Korea might carry out a fourth nuclear test, a senior Chinese official who is viewed as being a messenger between the North and the United States is now in Washington. Well, he held talks with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry on Tuesday, where North Korea's nuclear program topped the agenda. What did they discuss and what were the results? Our Kim Hyun-bin has the details.
The director of the International Department of China's Central Committee of the Communist Party held talks with U.S. Secretary John Kerry at the Department of State on Tuesday, local time. Wang Jie-ru, considered a messenger between China and North Korea, is believed to have discussed issues related to the Korean peninsula with Kerry, namely the North Korean nuclear threat and a possible resumption of the six-party talks. U.S. diplomatic sources note that Wang's visit to Washington is rare and added that he is scheduled to meet with key U.S. diplomatic figures during his stay. It represents the latest development in a bid to curb North Korea's nuclear development. Last month, China's representative to the six-party denuclearization talks, Wu Da-wei, met with his U.S. counterpart Glenn Davies in Washington and New York, although they failed to come up with a concrete plan to advance talks. The sense of urgency is spurred by increased activity at the North Korea's Punggye-ri nuclear test site. Recent satellite images show that North Korea has sealed a nuclear tunnel shaft there, suggesting it could conduct the fourth nuclear test at any given time. Most experts agree that Pyongyang is capable of carrying out a test in the near future, but South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff is trying to downplay the speculation. It says Pyongyang has opened and sealed the tunnel numerous times before, and that the move doesn't necessarily mean a test is imminent, but added that it is keeping a close watch on the situation regardless. North Korea has conducted 3 previous nuclear tests, most recently in February of last year. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
Well, it's something we hope to never see, but a U.S. lawmaker says that if war were to break out on the Korean Peninsula, Washington would deploy 20 Marine brigades to help defend the South. Well, this is according to Howard McKeon, the chairman of the U.S. House Armed Service Committee. When asked Tuesday about war plans on the Korean Peninsula during a debate on next year's National Defense Authorization Act, McKeon said 20 brigades would be mobilized. But some say federal budget cuts could make those plans really unrealistic. The number of brigades in the Marine Corps is expected to drop to 21 once the cuts are complete, which would leave just 1 brigade in reserve. The United Nations Human Rights Council has given 268 recommendations to North Korea for its various human rights violations. They came from the UN Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva Tuesday after a review on North Korea's human rights violations. Now, with its prison camps and public executions, North Korea will now have to state which recommendations it will accept. The UN is urging Pyongyang to close its prison camps and to seriously address the issues of prisoners of war and separated families. Now, this report will be made public at the next Human Rights Council meeting in September. The public anger and outrage over the Sewol-ho ferry disaster is prompting the Korean government to act swiftly and fill in gaps in safety regulations. The government has announced plans to introduce an inspector within the Maritime Ministry to oversee not only the safety management of vessels, but also the areas in which they operate. During a cabinet meeting Wednesday, officials also discussed shifting the current maritime safety system that focuses on emergency response to one that focuses more on preventing accidents. Now, under the changes, a presidential decree would determine who is subject to safety inspections and when a vessel operator is required to submit its safety records. The measures are meant to address criticism that mismanagement and tax oversight led to last month's deadly ferry accident. Now, exactly 3 weeks have passed since the Sewol-ho ferry capsized off the southwestern coast of Korea. Days have turned into weeks, but more than 30 people still remain unaccounted for. Now, for the latest on the recovery operations and, of course, the ongoing investigations, we now connect live to our Kwon Soa at the News Center. So what are we learning of late?
Well, Kanyang, recovery operations are in full swing on this Wednesday. As from today, tidal currents are going to be at their calmest for the next 4 days. Divers began with their search early this morning, and a few hours ago, a female body was recovered on the 4th floor of the ship. That means the number of missing now stands at 33, while 269 have been confirmed dead. The first search phase was completed on Tuesday when all 64 cabinets out of the total 111 that were thought to have held passengers were opened and searched through at least once. Now the cabins will be explored in detail, including bathrooms, storage rooms, and snack bars. Freight cars may also be searched. Now, out of concern for the rescue divers' health, more medical staff have been deployed at the accident site. This comes after a civilian diver died on Tuesday when he went into the rough water to install new guideline ropes to the 5th floor of the ship to help in the search for the dozens of bodies that remain unaccounted for. After about 5 minutes at a depth of about 25 meters, the 53-year-old lost communication with his fellow divers. The veteran diver was found unconscious and was transported by helicopter to the nearest hospital in Mokpo, but died soon after arriving. This is the first fatality among divers in the nearly 3 weeks of search and rescue operations. Officials are still trying to determine his exact cause of death.
An X-ray of his chest showed no irregularities, but a scan to the head showed a buildup of air inside his skull.
Well, so that is yet another very sad twist to this disaster. Let's hope the remaining search operations are completed safely. Now, while the search for the missing continues, the investigations are also proceeding at a fast pace, right?
That's right, Kwon, but some are slowing down the investigations as people related to Yoo Byung-on, the former Semo Group chairman and practical owner of the Cheongjin Marine Company, which is the Sewol-ho ferry's operator, are not appearing in front of prosecutors for questioning. This includes Yoo's second son, who is said to be abroad. He was given an ultimatum to appear before prosecutors this Thursday after failing to show up 2 times before. If he doesn't come in tomorrow, he may be forced into the country with the help of the FBI, and Yoo Byung-on and his first son may be summoned first. Meanwhile, at the prosecutor's office in Incheon, the special investigation team questioned 2 out of 7 key figures related to Yoo throughout the night. This includes Byun Gi-chun, the president of I1I Holdings, as well as Semo Group president Ko Chang-hwan, who are both suspected of irregular business practices. Prosecutors will decide soon whether they will issue an arrest warrant.
Right, that's something that we'll keep a close eye on. Now, meanwhile, people in Korea were just wrapping up a long holiday weekend that, of course, included a Children's Day and Buddha's birthday. And we hear that many people chose to pay respects to the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster by visiting memorial altars instead of going out to a park or whatnot. So tell us more about that.
Sure, Kwon. At a group memorial altar set up in the city of Ansan, where most of the victims were from, visitors from all around the country came to pay their respects. Since it opened a week ago, the Ansan Memorial Hall has received more than 430,000 visitors, and a total of at least 1.4 million have visited one of the many memorial altars set up throughout the nation. Outside the mass memorial hall in Ansan, a row of parents of the young passengers that were on board of the ferry are continuing their silent protest for a 5th day, along with other citizens and organizations. They are holding up signs expressing their discontent with the government over its handling of tragedy, as well as messages to their children that say, "I miss you, sorry, and I love you." Now, that's all I have for now from the News Center.
That was our Kwon Soa. Thank you. Now, the New York State Senate has passed a bill that requires the dual use of the Korean name East Sea and the Japanese name Sea of Japan to refer to the body of water that separates the 2 countries. At a general session Tuesday, the state Senate passed the bill in an overwhelming 59-1 vote. That bill requires the dual usage of both names in all school textbooks from July 2016 in that state. And of course, for it to become law, the bill has to pass the lower house as well. A similar bill on the East Sea name has been passed in Virginia in March, and spurred by their success, Korean American civic groups plan to push for similar legislation in states with high Korean American populations, such as California and New Jersey. Meanwhile, prior to that vote, the New York State Senate adopted a resolution expressing its condolences for the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Moon Gon-yong live from Seoul.
Mobile shopping market for the dual use of the Korean name East Sea and the Japanese name Sea of Japan in school textbooks in the state of Virginia. A U.S. team is on its way to rescue hundreds of girls who have been kidnapped in Nigeria. As global outrage grows over the lack of progress in now 3-week-old search for more than 300 missing teenagers, a team of U.S. experts are en route to Nigeria, and personnel from military and law enforcement backgrounds are expected to assist Nigerian forces via logistical and intelligence support. Now, overnight, the Goodluck Jonathan government accepted the U.S. offer for help. This as 8 more girls are reported kidnapped by suspected Boko Haram militants in the same state. The latest raid took place in the northeastern village of Warabe, where gunmen also took animals and food. Now, on Monday local time, a video featuring a self-proclaimed leader of Boko Haram surfaced saying the group, in accordance with directions from Allah, will continue to kidnap the daughters of Christians, force them to convert to Islam, and sell them into slavery. Now, back here in this country, the Korean won rose to a fresh nearly 6-year high on Wednesday after a long public holiday as the dollar eased, while local stocks extended losses to a 6-week trough. Korean financial markets were closed on Monday and Tuesday for public holidays. The local currency was quoted at 10.27 against the dollar as of 1:30 p.m. Korea time, up 0.3% from Friday's onshore close at 10.30.3. The won hit as high as 10.26 won per dollar, the strongest since August 8, 2008. On the trading floor, the benchmark Kospi was down 0.9% at 1941.5 after touching an intraday low of 1940, the weakest since March 25th. It's history in the making in the stock listings world. Alibaba, one of the world's fastest growing internet companies, has officially filed its initial public offering in the U.S., and it could be one of the biggest ever. Our Connie Lee with the details.
Alibaba is not only the biggest online marketplace in China, according to some reports, it's the biggest online marketplace in the world. And now the e-commerce giant has its eyes on the U.S., officially filing to launch an initial public offering there. In its registration statement, the Chinese company said it plans to raise $1 billion, but analysts say the amount is likely to go much higher. Some expect its IPO to surpass that of Facebook, which raised $16.4 billion in 2012, while others expect Alibaba's offering to be as big as credit card company Visa, which raised nearly $20 billion in 2008. If the total surpasses that amount, Alibaba's IPO could become one of the largest ever in the U.S. Based on the average estimate from a dozen analysts surveyed by Bloomberg News, Alibaba is valued at $168 billion. So what exactly is Alibaba? Simply put, the online marketplace is described as a mixture of Amazon, eBay, and PayPal, but with sales that trumpet those three online sites. Alibaba accounts for about 80% of online shopping in China, and although it's widely known there and among global tech industry watchers, Alibaba is much lesser known in the West. The tech giant is set to make its debut either on the New York Stock Exchange or the Nasdaq sometime this summer. It was in 1999 when the company was founded in eastern China by 49-year-old Jack Ma. He was worth $4 billion last year. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Now, shifting our focus to the realm of ice over the long holiday weekend, many Koreans also took time to thank a living legend. They packed an ice rink to bid farewell to Kim Yeon-ah, the figure skating sensation that left a lasting mark in the history books and in the minds of many sports fans. ARIRANG News Song Ji-sun takes us to the scene of Queen Yeon-ah's last official performance on ice.
17 years of competition on ice. Olympic and world champion Kim Yeon-ah has been waiting for this moment for a very long time to close her chapter as a competitive skater. And for her last gala, she transformed into a princess who can't sleep, taking the ice with the opera Turandot, one that she always wanted to skate to. From her signature Yeon-ah camel spin to triple jumps, her skating is flawless like it always has been. Even though she steps down from the competitive spotlight, skaters believe unanimously that there has not been, and may never be, another perfect skater like Kim.
I have such respect for you and all that you've done, and to come back and skate the way you skated, it was even better, and you were, to me, the best. You've just changed the sport, so thank you for what you've given to the sport. And
it is time to say goodbye, but it's hard for the fans to see the Queen leave the ice, as she has been a mainstay of hope and inspiration to her audiences. Kim, who already donated to UNICEF for the Sewol-ho ferry victims, spared a minute of silence before the start of the show.
Her performance is a great consolation to the nation, especially at a time when it's in sorrow and like now. I wish her all the best for her future.
The figure skater who always stood on the podium in every competition she entered in now has a future entirely open to herself, in which she said figure skating will always be some part of.
Even after the Olympics, I trained as usual to give the best in this ice show for my fans. As for the future, I will take things slow, take some rest, as it's really over now.
Kim let go her status as national skater as of Tuesday, marked the beginning of a new life away from competitive skating. 송지선, 아리랑 뉴스.
And now let's get back to our arts and culture segment. And of course, Im Yoon-hee joins us live in the studio. Well, good to see you after a long holiday.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. There were many events going on because of the Children's Day and Buddha's birthday. And Yoon-hee, today you have an exhibition that is fitting for this occasion, right?
Right. So I'm sure viewers noticed over the weekend many of the events that took place for the two holidays. But, you know, Buddha's birth, the day of Buddha's birth, is not just for people who participate in Buddhism. There are quite many events that many people can take part in, and so one of these photo exhibitions is not just limited to those who follow Buddhism. I think everyone will enjoy it. Let's take a look.
Buddhism is a commonly found religion in Asia. Many follow after the teachings of Buddhism in search for enlightenment and the sublime state of nirvana. And all of these teachings are based on a man from 5th century BCE, who went by the name of Siddhartha Gautama, but he's known to many as Buddha. And every year, millions of people from all over the world celebrate his birth through various different events, including a photography exhibition.
The Buddhism photography event is about taking pictures regarding Buddhism. We have an event every month, and this month's theme is the wind chime. They're often hung on the roofs of temples, so we visited various temples to take these pictures.
Whether it be on the mysterious mountainsides or the glistening shores, the wind chime has long been seen as a means of achieving harmony within the mind and the soul. Soft resonating sounds from the chimes are believed to bring a sense of peace and well-being, and were often hung around Buddhist temples for decades throughout the history of Asia. The wind chime seen hanging around Korea often feature a fish, wiggling peacefully through the air.
As the wind blows, if you extend the exposure, you can capture the movement. This piece is called Can You Hear the Wind Chime? The fish represents the pursuit of nirvana in Buddhism, because a fish never rests and is always moving around like the wind chime in the wind.
Sometimes they lay silent, hanging from the roofs of snow-laden temples, but sometimes they send soft chimes through the air. Wherever they are, they symbolize the peace and well-being of the body, mind, and soul.
Right, it's not only about religion, the Buddhism and Buddhist arts. I think it's really something that many of us can really relate to and really be offered calmness in. And I hear you have some more exhibition of that sort.
Right, so there are quite a bit of artwork is actually inspired by Buddhism. And so the Tapgol Museum here located in Seoul, they are featuring some Buddhism-inspired paintings, and some of these date back all the way to the 1700s, and they're just beautiful to look at.
Right, and there are also permanent ones as well.
Right, so the Chuncheon National Museum located in the Gangwon-do province, they have a permanent exhibition featuring Buddhism, but they also have another exhibition right now called the Hand of Buddha, and that features the verbal or the nonverbal silent hand gesture called the mudras that's often seen in Buddhism, and so you can see that you can see the story behind the hand gesture and the whole story behind that as well. So quite a few to check out.
Right, very inspiring work for us today. Thank you, Yoon-hee.
My pleasure.
The Nitai period is back in waters of the southwestern coast at the site of the Sewol ferry operations. Now, the slow tides will continue throughout the week, giving the divers a better opportunity to conduct searches. Now, for the rest of the nation, we can expect partly cloudy skies. However, it will get even cloudier as the day progresses, bringing showers at night in the central region and Gangwon-do province. Now, the daytime highs are now mostly in the mid-20s, but there are huge temperature gaps between the mornings and nights of about 8 degrees, making it very chilly. Now, going over to our temperature readings, Seoul tops out at 22 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will peak up to 24 and 20 degrees. Now, moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops out at 22, Dokdo at 18, while Mangkumgang tops out at 14. Well, that's all I have at this moment. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you, Kanyang.
Well, that's just about all from me at this hour. I'm Moon Gon-young. Check back with us at 4 p.m. Korea time for Business Today.